Hello and welcome back. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the rest of the programming. My name is Kristen Glushan. I'm the head of partnerships and marketing for Trigger, the mixed reality agency, and I am the track chair. So looking forward to the rest of this afternoon and the upcoming panel, Now, Next, Future, Retail XR Lifecycle. So we've got a very esteemed panel here. I'll introduce our moderator first, and then from there, he can introduce the rest of the panelists. So I am joined by Max Limper, the CTO of Darmstadt Graphic Groups. Max is a 3D graphics expert and standards contributor. He's also the CEO and co-founder of DGG, a startup creating the Rapid Compact platform. Working with leading retailers, Max and his team are on a mission to automate 3D asset optimization workflows for web, mobile, and XR targets for e-commerce and beyond. Max received his PhD of engineering with honors from TU Darmstadt in the area of 3D data optimization. He's also helped to shape the feature format of Khronos, where he is serving as co-chair of the 3D asset creation TSG. So welcome, Max, and I'll let you take it from here. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you so much for the very kind introduction, and it's my very pleasure to hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. So. Amra, maybe you can make the start.
I certainly can. And hi, I'm Amra. I'm the CEO, co-founder of All3D. We're based out of San Francisco. My background, just to give you an idea of why I'm doing this, I led innovations for Bed Bath & Beyond. And as you know, the future of experiential retail is all 3D. And so I was involved in doing a lot of prototyping for augmented reality, creating 3D assets. The company I was the chief product officer, Decorous, got acquired by Bed Bath & Beyond, and they did design services and e-commerce for home goods, including furnishings of all types and home improvement. Prior to that, I was also CEO, co-founder of a company called All Voices, which I sold. So I've been an entrepreneur, previously a VC fund, Seven Rosen Funds. I was a partner, and we invested in enterprise software and networking companies. And before that, Bell Labs, Ascend Communications, Internet Networking and Routing. So extremely technical, 4 patents granted. Electrical engineering, computer science from Sydney, Australia, and Harvard MBA. So I'm not a typical Silicon Valley tech bro, but I am a tech and business person. So and what is All3D doing? We create virtual experiences for e-commerce, specifically for manufacturers and retailers in the home sector, which also intersects real estate. What Matterport is doing, we do everything virtually, all spaces and products, and give people tools to create customization of their environments and also interior design too.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much. And these slides are ordered by first name, so Amra, and then the next one would be Aurélien.
Hi everyone. So I'm Aurélien Veissé. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Immersia. Immersia is an end-to-end product experience platform which empowers brands to leverage 3D throughout all the value chain and all the product life cycle. So basically we do experience authoring, distribution management for, let's say, 3D and IR sales, product customization, and product development. We've been 10 years in the business innovating the 3D and AR experiences for e-commerce. I personally have technical and business background, so both of them are reunite. I hand over to Dalia.
All right, thanks. So Dalia, you're next.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dalia. I'm a co-founder and CEO at CG Trader. So CG Trader started as a stock 3D model marketplace to connect designers and artists and buy and sell 3D models. And we have built this marketplace to a very successful marketplace, one of the largest content providers globally. And we've been building this community and this business for a while. And several years ago, we saw that e-commerce is starting to adopt 3D in a more scalable way. And the missing component in that adoption was always the 3D content, right? So how do I convert my thousands of products into 3D? And so this is what we set out to solve with Arsenal. So Arsenal is a scalable 3D content production engine that ingests reference images like product links and so on, and delivers all kinds of visuals, 3D models, and so on. So we've been very fortunate to have some really amazing customers like Ashley Furniture, Google, some of the biggest furniture retailers, general retailers, tech companies, and so on. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and to discuss with the colleagues here about the future of this industry.
Cool, thank you so much. The next one to introduce themselves is John Wade, who is with us remotely. Hey John, can you hear us?
I can. Hello, everyone. I'm coming to you live from here at home in this giant TV screen, is what I assume I'm in. So I work for Shopify. For those of you who don't know, we're a place where you can come to start, run, and grow a business. We have over 1.7 million merchants doing that on our platform, from people doing side hustles at night to some very large companies and brand names you've heard of. My team and the teams I work with, our job is to try and democratize 3D and AR for all of these merchants, to make sure that every merchant of every size has the ability to participate in this market. We do that in 3 ways. One is through obviously the products and services that Shopify itself creates, but we are a platform. So, some of the panelists and maybe members of the audience, they help those merchants of ours create exactly what they want in the 3D space, whether that's content creation, whether that's apps and viewers that do specific things for specific verticals. And then the third way Shopify helps is our contribution to the open standards like Khronos. Personally, I've been at Shopify for 5 years working on AR, VR, 3D, everything from stuff that never left the lab to all the products that we're shipping now. Before that, spent 11 years at a post-secondary institution, a research lab, doing a bunch of stuff about cognition and spatial memory and things like that. That was related to VR and AR training. And as well as most of the people on the panel, I'm a Khronos contributor.
All right, thank you so much, John. And last but not least is Al here.
Yeah, thank you. So it's hard to pronounce, so just call me Al.
But say the right pronunciation.
You want? It's
Yeah,
a lot of
course.
phlegm to process now. It's Y-E-H, phlegm, E-L. So Yechiel, if you want to give it a go. Yeah, good luck with that. So Hex, so for the past 5 years, I've been working with Fortune 500 retailers and their equivalents around the globe to change the way they visualize and communicate their products using synthetic data. We typically work with enterprise-level customers of Macy's, Crane & Barrel, Logitech, these type of companies. So both brands and retailers in 3 segments: fashion, furniture, consumer electronics. We're actually category agnostic, so we can process very much anything. Imagine a platform that will lower your reconstruction costs, the 3D modeling costs, and increase the content value, which is very important. So the way that today we're measured, and every one of the panelists measures how much value we're creating for our customers. So you can create value either by additional use cases like rendering or distribution, syndication, or by scaling the amount of content that you can actually create, or lowering that cost. So that's something we do very, very effectively. So creating, managing, distribution, and analyzing the content. So understanding what is the ROI. So for each of those use cases, what is the perfect asset that you can create? So that's the things that we specialize in. Thank you so much, Max, for setting this up.
Well, thank you. And I'll skip the intro of myself because we had that already in the beginning. Just one word, like in case you didn't notice from the branding of these slides, we're all members of Khronos Group, and Khronos has helped us to get everyone together here and organize this panel. So many thanks to the Khronos members also for that. And we're all working together in the 3D commerce working group at Khronos. And it's a really great opportunity now to get all these experts that have a lot of experience either working in retail or with retailers to discuss about the future of XR in retail. And so I would like to kick it off with a question to Aurélien, which is a more general one, right? So looking at the general impact of 3D technology and AR and e-commerce, how do you think will this kind of technology change consumer expectations and the ways in which we consume products? maybe also some illustration here, some examples. Yeah.
Yeah, let's turn the video in the background. It will illustrate what I'm talking about. So 3D set new standards in the way people explore and consume products. There are new ways of experiencing the products, it's one part, and there are new ways of consuming the products, it's another part. Regarding the way it's experienced, basically the 3D and augmented reality makes the consumer not any longer a passive spectator of their purchase, looking at still pictures that are curated by the brands. But now they can fully interact with the product, they can fully engage and be free to explore the product the way they want. And this freedom is key for the user engagement. Basically, the freedom to look around the product from any angle, look at it in great details, interact with the product and animate them, try them out in augmented reality, try them on in augmented reality, or even customize them in order to create a unique piece that is really the one that they expect. And that's where 3D and AR starts to also change the way people consume and the things that they purchase. So basically, they can now purchase products that they mix and match, for which they change color and materials, for which they add accessories, for which they would assemble them in the way they want, or they would apply a custom text, a custom image, and all this is made possible thanks to the 3D and augmented reality, because it allows the ability to explore and visualize products in real time with high quality. And it could even be products that do not exist. So that's the final thing I would like to talk about. So now it's not anymore, and it becomes more and more like virtual goods that are purchased that are not necessarily tangible goods. And this opens a new market for game skins, for NFTs, for the metaverse products. And that's more the experience that are purchased than the product in these cases.
All right, thanks. I think that's super exciting, and that actually leads me to a follow-up question, maybe to Al. When we look at these use cases that we saw, a lot of them are from the apparel domain, right? And if we consider virtual clothing, we're seeing exciting new developments such as virtual fit, virtual try-on, but even things like purchasing game skins, like digital twins of products like this shoe here, and even like virtual closets. So will the future of clothing, in your opinion, be mostly virtual?
So it really depends, right? So that's a good question, but the problem with creating that content at scale, especially when we're talking about soft meshes, right, soft goods, it's still there. Even if you're using like Clo, Optitex, Raspberry, it's still very difficult to scale, even if you have the pattern, right? So the pattern makers will give you that as, it's like putting it in a way that will represent real life, it's very difficult. Now, today there's good technology, right? So AI helps us do like virtual dressing. Snap is doing an amazing job. You know, the Israeli team is developing that actually. It's getting there, but since Hexa started as a virtual dressing platform, there's so many different problems that you need to solve before you can actually solve the virtual try-on, right? So you're referring to fit or size. Measurement acquisition, avatar creation, the fact that there aren't any soft tissue avatars, right? So this simulation of, let's say, the jeans, right? So I'm a bit fat here, so the fat is pushing on the garment and the garment is pushing back. That's a really difficult simulation to do. So until you have these type of technologies and you can, I don't know, go into the shower, get scanned, get out, and I get that, right? So, you know, imagine like a GDPR on a scanning shower, right? That's difficult. I know you're European, you invented GDPR. That's difficult. Yeah. So until you solve all of that problem, virtual fitting won't be of value to anyone because it's not accurate enough. Virtual try-on, definitely. You see that the gamification of it, you know, the fun, what you can do with it, definitely something that is plausible. 2022 is definitely going to be a lot around that area. Not fit, but still, fun visualization, that's an important part of it.
All right, thanks. Cool. That's a really interesting differentiation and already
And
great
remember,
takeaway.
scanning showers, you heard it from me first.
Everyone take a note. And by the way, at the end of the session, in case you came in later, we'll also have the opportunity for everyone to ask their questions to the panelists, right? So if you have a question, keep that in mind. So now we have looked at different exciting developments, but then we'll go a bit more into different areas now, a bit more into detail, thinking about how to create such an experience. And I would like to ask the next question to John here from Shopify. So what they're building is really exciting because they're enabling all these little merchants that usually have no, maybe not even an IT department and for sure no 3D department. They are enabling them to put their content on the web and to create online shops, including 3D functionality, which is really cool. So my question would be, John, what are the barriers to getting merchants and manufacturers with no experience in 3D into this ecosystem?
Yeah, I think there's two big ones. So one is everything sort of starts and ends with return on investment, right? So understanding what is this actually going to bring me, right? Like we see these concepts, we think they're great, but how will that move my engagement numbers? How will that up my conversions? How will that lower my returns, right? And so that's a bit of pulling data from merchants like them or just the industry at large. And for some, it's them asking that question themselves. For others in a larger organization, it's about convincing their stakeholders to get involved and to give this a try. Once you overcome that hurdle, though, then there's these big questions about, well, where do I start, right? And so certainly the most difficult one is that content creation problem. How do I make digital representations of my products that are accurate and realistic and show really well? For things like the last question, virtual try-on, what are the limits of the capabilities? How do I find a partner or how do I develop something that can match my expectations of what that virtual try-on experience is like, or that room layout experience, and so on. And as they start diving into these questions, often what I've experienced or have heard from merchants is that they can become very overwhelmed. We have folks that are sitting in the room there at the conference. We have experts from the film and the game industry who've been working with 3D for years, but all the technology, the terminology, the tools are very daunting. They're not as accessible as what we have for, say, images and video right now. So there's this big question for them about what's that flow of getting that content made? Who do I talk to? Who can help me through this process? How much do I have to, get help from others? How much can I do myself? So those are sort of the big macro things that people have to work through.
All right, cool, super interesting. And I think we go into that area now a bit more in depth, and starting with Amra, a question about the ideation, basically, of the 3D content. How does a 3D representation and notion of a product evolve from the moment of conception throughout the retail value chain? So maybe you can give us some background on that.
Sure. So when I was at Bed Bath & Beyond, it was very interesting that the CEO asked me, how can we create digital content? Because Bed Bath & Beyond went to manufacturers and got all their products, and then they would do a photo shoot. They would either pick a location or create a studio, get all the products shipped. Some products would get damaged. Some would not fit into the studio. They would get a crew to move things around, get a stylist to style it, and then a photographer to come and photograph it. It would cost them $500,000 to $1 million just to create 30 to 50 images that they would put in a catalog. And remember, they were sourcing products from all the manufacturers and vendors. What would happen is their catalog would go out, or their email campaign would go out, and the table or a piece of chair that was on the front cover would be out of stock. And the catalog just hit all the customers. So I was in the situations where the photo shoot was perishable, that it would, once it's taken, it's obsolete from that day. You can change things with Photoshop, but you really cannot if the product's out of stock or is discontinued and whatever. So I got to talk to all the manufacturers and all the vendors. There are in thousands of Bed Bath that would actually manufacture those products. And some of them are our customers today. And what happens is, usually at a manufacturer, there's a product designer who designs a CAD for a piece of product. Then they go to the factory in China, Philippines, or in Vietnam to actually go manufacture the sample. The sample that gets shipped to the warehouse, and then they look at the sample. It takes 3 months already, and then they don't like it. So, what they do with us is they upload their CADs onto our platform, and immediately within 24 hours, they get a 3D replica of their CAD with swatches that they've done. And we produce it, and then our system automatically creates all the images, the 360 spins, the 3D versions for them to look at, and then they can make changes. And so what our customers say that not only have we saved them 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, we've turned it around into days. And then we give them tools that they can create products in a white background, zoom in, zoom out, all browser-based technology that they can look at, and then they can actually do their own photo shoot, and then they upload that onto a retailer's website. Then the retailer goes through multi-manufacturer products and does a photo shoot again, and then they advertise that on Google, Pinterest, and all the rest. And what's happening is that in that whole supply chain, if you're a manufacturer and you're selling across multiple retailers, that same image goes up when you're doing ads. Then what happens when the ad shows the same? The consumer goes for the lowest cost or lowest price. And then all the scrapers of these big retailers go into dynamic pricing and lower the pricing, and the margins go low. So you can see that it impacts all the way from factory to manufacturer to the retailer, and eventually the consumer. So what we are seeing in our customer base is not only do they want to view something in their room as AR, they also want to see it in beautiful environments. And so you can target multiple customer segments as a retailer in beautiful environments that you can customize. And as I think Yihal mentioned, you also customize your products based on which retailers you sell to. So imagine if you change this chair in 5 different versions to sell at Target, Walmart, Wayfair, Bed Bath. You'll have to create 5 different samples and then take photographs. With 3D, you can do it immediately, create one version, then do all the variants very quickly and automatically. And I think that's what you're seeing in the whole supply chain today. And with COVID and delays of shipping, 3D's become something very viable today. And we're talking to retailers and also manufacturers who do annually 35 million in revenue all the way to 500 million. And the pain is across the same, and they do not know 3D, they don't want to know 3D, they don't have stylists, they don't have designers, they have product designers, but they want someone to come and do it as a subscription to them. They don't want a nickel and dime on a model, how much a rug is going to cost or how much a chair is going to cost. They want the same pricing.
All right. Cool, yeah. I think we have to agree that very soon it's going to be a competitive disadvantage if you are not using CGI, right?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, with that said, question to Dalia, who also gave a talk at 11 in this very room about related topics, right? Like how to create models on a massive scale. Well, what does it actually take to build a scalable 3D production pipeline that allows you to create thousands of digital products in a very short time? Because you have a lot of experience at that with at CG Trader. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are actually a few things that are essential if you are scaling 3D. Number one is a platform, right? So we started Arsenal with an order of 50 models from a customer, and it was a nightmare. We were doing, back and forth screenshots, like emails, things like that. It's impossible to work even for such a small order, like 50 models. So we built, with these learnings, we built Arsenal, and the key things there are, one is QA. So you have to find a way to communicate the things that need to be changed to the designer, right? So this is, we have 150 checks that are checking it automatically, and then we have visual QA that ultimately kind of shows the designer that, make this brighter or make this something else. And this has been working really well with our customers, and you don't actually even need the 3D background to use this because it's just a visual QA. So that's one part, the platform. And the very related part is automation. So you want to automate all steps. Something that you can do at a small scale, like pricing and so on, is you can do it manually, but at large scale, you need to automate it, and you need to make sure that you don't involve humans quite as much unless it's absolutely necessary. And then the third part is, of course, designers. So we've been fortunate to have the CG Trader platform that has 4.7 million users, and from there we are able to source designers with all kinds of skill sets. But that's not enough, because every designer is different. They have different preferences, different experiences, and then we have internal algorithms that match the tasks with the designer, things that they are good at, what kind of tasks they can undertake, and then on top of that you build incentives like personal multipliers for good performance and things like that. So it's a very, very advanced system. It's not just sending thousands of models to designers based on random order. It takes a lot of thinking and work to do that. So this is from our experience. And on the customer side, we always talk about reference images. That's important, the input that you provide to the production. And then the other part is who will do QA on the customer side. Is it someone else? Is it outsourced? Is it internal team? So this can take time when you suddenly start getting hundreds of models per day to review.
Thank you so much. I think you mentioned already that you're working with thousands of designers and some of the challenges. So do I get it correctly that basically you had to put a lot of work into building QA pipelines, and that asset QA is one of the major things you had to solve in order to work with thousands of designers? Is it fair to assume that?
Yeah, absolutely. So because there are three levels, right? So on one hand you have the designer, then we have our internal team, and then we have the customer, and they all have to work really well together without the email screenshots or anything like that.
And imagine that you have 20 different workflows. How do you even process that? How do you train a team to process that many QAs, right? How do you train them to meet different types of quality? So the level of complexity is getting really big. And when those enterprise customers come and say, okay, I want to jump from 10,000 a year to 50,000. It can't happen tomorrow, right? So you have to build a lot of technologies just to facilitate these type of jumps.
And you have to work with offshore agencies, right? I mean, I suppose, let's say I would have a 3D modeling studio. Could I plug myself into the CG Trader ecosystem? What's the process?
Yeah, so the upside of the CG Trader ecosystem is that it can be a studio or a designer. So the reason they like it is because once they are qualified on Arsenal, we have the algorithm that defines their complexity level of tasks that they can take on. And for them, they don't need to bid on every job, right? So they open Arsenal in the morning and they are, looking, I feel like doing chairs today, and they just pick up the task and start working. So it's quite compelling for the designers as well.
All right, cool, thanks. So wrapping up the part about production here, one more question to Amra maybe. So this is a visualization of a CGI scene, yeah, that you created or had created for a client. We've now talked about asset production, but then going maybe a bit more into the production/distribution direction. When creating content on a large scale, so how can we make sure that we support also future devices or usage scenarios? So let's say this field is rapidly evolving, right? We get new devices every year and new platforms to serve. So how do you make sure that you support all of those, and what's the role of automation in that context?
Great. So as you see this image, and I'll go through it in the context of this image. This is highly photorealistic is the term that the industry uses. And especially in the home category, you have to have this is a 3D image. This is a virtual room. Everything is a 3D virtual product built based on actually just CADs. And this was turned around in a week with all the 3D models and the space itself. We provide our customers with browser-based tools to actually create a design like this. So once you have the products, they're in your library. The space that you create, it's in your library. it takes someone 30 minutes to put the scene together. With one click, they can choose the resolution of the image, create a 3D tour. You could actually see this as a Matterport tour, and we can do houses and not just spaces. But the whole idea of this content is it's still high res, and it's more for desktop. But each of these models need to be scaled down if you want to view them for augmented reality on mobile devices. So we then have to bring these down and change not only the geometry of the models itself down to low poly count, we also have to change the material textures itself, because this is on high resolution textures, we have to bring them down. So the total asset itself is 10 meg at the most. So the formats are changing based on Apple with USDZ and Google with GLB. So our platform has to make sure you convert them into different formats, and also different memory footprint, so they can work on different devices. And I think the reason why we're all in Khronos Group is exactly that, because they make sure we all know about the players, what the industry standards are being defined, and what the content needs to be done. We would all love the content to be scaled and downsized to meet the devices, so any content on any device, but we're not there today. So by the fact that all on this panel are in Khronos Group and trying to figure out the standards and all that as we go forward, so once the asset's created, it doesn't become obsolete, that you can use it for distribution across anything. Most of our customers don't understand that, Max, today. They want it because they want it on the image, they want it on the web, they want to give it to their retailer. But that's our job, to educate them and make sure that we can provide distribution.
All right, yeah, thanks. So would you all on the panel agree if I'd say that our goal should be to produce a high-res, high-quality base asset and then automatically derive our publication assets from that one?
It really depends, right? So if you have like, I don't know, a 2 million polygon sofa, I don't know, you can try and throw it into Simplegon and see what happens. So you won't get the asset you want back.
You just have to throw it into Rapid Compact.
Exactly. So you can use that. But again, you will lose fidelity. And if we're talking about cross-platform, so the assets, because they're rendered in different rendering engines, then it's another difficulty. So it's not only the file size. It's like the artists, when they're creating the assets, when they're finalizing it, let's say getting to the fidelity that the customer actually needs, I don't know, they'll export a GLTF from Substance. And then they'll upload it to a viewer, and then try it on ARKit and ARCore. It looks different, right? So what? You'll start creating assets for each platform? Brands want that. They want the level of fidelity. They want hyperrealism in each of those rendering engines, and that's something that, even if you're using the same 3JS and it's standardized through Khronos Group, it doesn't look the same, and that's a challenge that is going to be there for the next couple of years until we figure out how to solve that.
But you're on the right track. Just look at videos. Video capture is done in highest resolution possible, and then you can bring them down. So I think making your asset in highest resolution possible and then trying to break down the mesh and different types of materials is the way we should be targeting and trying to go, but it's not there today.
All right, so maybe we can agree that while the automation may not be there in all cases, splitting the workflow in this way is a good thing to do, right?
Yeah, and again, if you want distribution, so some of the customers, you want to upload it to Amazon.com, you upload to Target, and again, each one of them has their own workflow. So I agree with Amra. Start with high res, and then either manually degrade it or use automation tools that will do most of the work. But then, you have to finalize it somehow with the human touch.
And then with LiDAR scans, because, with iPhone and LiDAR, those scans are pretty big. So they are very high poly counts, and then you have to decimate them. So I think with scanning, it's on the horizon, you'll have even high poly counts, which again would need to be decimated to be viewed on an iPhone.
Oh yeah, totally. Right, so with that, we're already going into the direction of technical distribution. So there, I would actually have a question to Aurélien, which is exactly the same direction now. What are successful strategies if you want to distribute 3D content on a large scale? So now we talked about optimization, okay, but let's say you want to distribute these scenes or like some products. I can also maybe show another example here, like something like this on a large scale.
Yeah, it follow up on what has just been said, and basically, it will depend on the strategy would depend on the experience that want to be offered, and also the platform and the e-commerce platform on which it has to be offered. Because you can sell on the brand website, you can sell on the retailer website, you can sell through ads, through search, through a metaverse, or whatever.
Roblox, Decentraland,
Yeah.
Paris Hilton Spaces.
Anywhere. So and so you have different approaches. One, and the easiest one, would be to address brands. They used to have more and more CAD models. We didn't talk much about the CAD models so far, but it's something that they already create in order to be able to produce their products. And that's a very good base for them. It's not made for rendering purposes, but it's already there, and it's one of the best start. So the brands are able to generate content, and they are also able to distribute this content with all their retailers. So if the goal is just to keep within this space of brand retailers display of products, then we can work like YouTube. You put a 3D file on a 3D viewer, you share a link, and then it can be displayed consistently across all the retailer sites.
Yeah, that's the work. They need to join a Khronos Group.
Yeah, and
It will help.
It will help. But the trade-off is that the retailers, on their hand, would have 3D viewers from various brands, and they would like to have a consistent offer of experiences. So they would also want to create their own experiences, and that's where we, as Khronos Group, are trying to build, and solve the issues of making sure that the content is consistent. So that's why we created the GLTF format. So we have the same base, and we are working on the 3D commerce viewer certification. So that multiple 3D viewers across different platforms are able to display the products in the most similar way as possible, actually a certified way. But that's really a key point.
All right, yeah, I can imagine that's super important because, like, as we heard, one main motivation for a retailer to use 3D is also like to reduce the number of returns, right? And if your product looks red in the catalog and purple in the actual physical version, then you send it back, then you actually don't help with that problem.
And an interesting thing is that the retailers are also asking for 3D models from the brands. And if the brand is preparing the red product and it doesn't look red on the retailer side, it's also an issue because the brand thinks that the content is right, but at the end it doesn't display right.
And actually 54% of the returns are due to color and dimensions. So 3D solves all those problems. Well, I don't know color.
If it's done right, huh?
But imagine a funny thing happens all the time is that the AR tools, right? So you want to put something here, and they get the HDRI from the environment, and it actually changes the color of the asset.
Exactly.
And it's like they're sending us. It's not the same color. We tested it on AR. It's like, okay, test like a what environment, like the ones that it's in the viewer. So it's gonna again. There's a lot of challenges to solve. It's getting in the right way, but it's like either join the Khronos Group so you can get the right advice because these things, if you don't plan them right, are gonna cost you a lot of money. You're gonna reconstruct all of your assets again and again and again because you don't have a robust pipeline.
And just to add to Yihel's point, so in our since most of our customers are manufacturers, they love the model and the color of in a neutral rig as the still photography, but when they do their lifestyles in an environment with lighting and other products, the reflection impacts the color of their product in particular. And that's when they complain saying, No, because the retailer is going to judge us. We don't care. We want the product's light to be exactly the same as it was in the silo, the same color, because the retailer dings them if it's not exact same match. But in a realistic case, it will not be based on the lighting and all the other reflections. So 3D is a lot more complicated when you go to environments and scenes than just product itself. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Yeah, that makes sense. And we've talked about like AR. This may not be an AR example, but maybe we can just take it and assume it would be. So we've heard USDZ, we have heard GLB and the viewer certification. So looking at USDZ, for example, there is the Apple AR kit that was mentioned right earlier, and it's basically a way to show a USDZ file on an iOS device in a standard way, right? Using like software that is already there on your iPhone, for example, and that will also use, for example, a reconstructed environment, right? That's reconstructed live. And so with that, I would like to have a segue into the next question to John, which is basically about appless AR. So John, what is so-called appless AR, and could it be an important development, and why?
Yeah, I mean, it's right there in the title, right? There's no app involved. There's sort of three levels I think about. There's sort of those quick looks and Android Scene Viewer that you mentioned. There's sort of in the middle where there's those kind of instant apps on both phone platforms where instead of having someone install through the App Store and have a full-blown app, there's sort of these just-in-time experiences. And the benefit there is some of those native SDKs or things that need particular access to hardware can kind of run just in time. But I think the most exciting is as this comes to the web, things like WebXR and having content come directly from a web page. And I think there's two sides to it. One, on the buyer side, the content is just eminently shareable. You can throw it in a text message. You can just discover it while you're on a page, while you're in a search result. It's very accessible. It's very easy to pass around, just like the content we're expecting on the web, things like GIFs and stuff that's very shareable. On the merchant side and the retailer side, building an app is extremely expensive. You have all the R&D of building the app, but you've also signed yourself up to a whole new business funnel, right? You already have to get people to visit your online store, to have brand awareness. And if you go build an app for yourself, you have all those problems again. How do I get people to find and download the app in the first place? How do I have retention? How do I make sure people open the app with some frequency that makes the content worthwhile and make sure that my messaging is getting across? And so when we can do this in an appless manner through the web, what you build for your online store, what you share on social media, even you could embed it in an app if you have one. It just makes that reuse really high. It makes it easy for customers to engage with. And so I think that's the most exciting part. I think, you know, kind of going back to some of the other questions about creating content, you know, we talked about the difficulty with things about rendering and decimating, you know, poly counts and things like that. Even if we solve those, we have this moving target. When we think about appless AR, you immediately want to get into interactivity. And so even if we solve all these things about static rendering and static objects, all of a sudden people want animation. They want to be able to do the virtual try-on we spoke about earlier, right? So we have all these moving targets that we have to keep standardizing and making sure that folks can engage with. But you know, the hope is through web standards, through the 3D format standards we're all working on, we can get to this place where, again, anyone can build something that's launchable on the web, whether that's on a phone or on a desktop PC or a VR headset. And it's super easy for someone to just stumble onto that content and engage with it immediately.
Cool. Yeah, that's super exciting. And I think it's for sure a trend that we'll follow inside Khronos and outside Khronos Group. So with that, like we have 2 minutes left. So I would like to wrap it up here with the last question to Al, which basically also picks up a point that John mentioned. So like if your business wants to benefit from 3D ads and social 3D, so there are key metrics such as customer acquisition costs, right, or CTR, and maybe you can just provide a bit of background, like how does 3D technology impact these key metrics, and maybe as a specific question, why are 3D assets not available anymore in Facebook's timeline? Because that would have been a great use case, or not?
Yeah, I think that's right. It's like the same question, why did Poly shut down, right? And then Albin sold his company to Epic because of that, probably. No, I'm joking. So it's hard to say. I don't know. Obviously, they have a lot of things that they're developing. Some are for the future, some are for now. But you have a lot of experience that they're working on. I think Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, Google are like the main players where you can see adoption in AR and 3D ads. They've already proven that the engagement is extremely high, so the ROI is very, very strong. Lenses are doing an amazing job, right? Like Snap Lenses, the ROI there is astounding. Basically, these are the options that you have today, but they're the main options. So you have Google Swirl, you have Sparks, you have TikTok. I don't know, TikTok already announced it? They launched it? I think they're working on it. So probably launch soon something similar to what Snap is doing. But again, these are very, very, let's say, limited options because the size of the experience, right, the file size has to be very, very low. So a typical lens, they just increased it to 5 megabytes. So what can you do, like high fidelity 3D asset with the experience in 5 megabytes? That's really hard to do, right? So you have to pick specific assets. Google Swirl, 2.5 megabytes.
Wow.
Google, and then Facebook, when it was possible, I think 2.5 megabytes. That was, it was 2.52, I think. Something strange.
5.2?
Yeah, something strange. I don't know why they decided that number. So again, it's limited, but the engagement is so overwhelming. It's like that's what the customer wants, and it's worth thinking about. It's not for every product. It's for specific products because of the size limitation. Because you don't want to put like a square, right? Because that's what size allows it. So again, very exciting into 2022. You see success stories, very strong. If I'm a marketer, it's like definitely something I need to be educated on. And what's surprisingly is that the teams, in those larger organizations that usually adopt this first, they don't know that they have this gazillion 3D assets sitting there that they can monetize. It's like there are different two silos, like either the product or e-com team, and then you have the marketing team. So even working that bridge is not that easy.
All right, cool. Yeah, thank you so much. And this wraps up our panel discussion here. I think this was really great. So thanks a lot to all our panelists. And now we're really looking forward to your questions from the audience. So if you have a question, feel free to step up to the microphone and ask.
And Dankeschön, Max, for moderating.
Toda.
Toda.
Yeah, so I've been hearing the Khronos Group talk about moving just to GLB and GLTF as standardized formats. How would we get away from USDZ? Is that like Apple's just gonna give it up or something?
They don't allow WebXR, so it's a closed garden experience. So it's like I think that's the only reason. That's their strategy.
Right. So
I mean,
is that going to happen? Be awesome, but
It should. I don't know, John. I think they said that they'll support WebXR, so you'll be able to use. But still,
I mean, I can't. I have no idea what Apple's product roadmap is. If you look in some of the Safari technical preview stuff, they have hints of the WebXR stuff. I think their choice around USDZ really stems from maybe an opposite direction, right? With GLTF, we're trying, explicitly to make sure we have a great performance delivery mechanism for 3D, so that you get an asset that's made for real time. It's made for delivery on the web. We call it the JPEG of 3D is what we're aiming for. I think Apple's approach was the USD file format is very successful and it's really good at what it does in the production world, right? So if you're in a VFX studio, you're making a TV show or a movie, you have a lot of artists working collaboratively and you have your own technology you want to pipe in. USDZ is great. They're trying to take that and crunch that down to something that's usable in real time. And so far it's been pretty bumpy as a user of the format. There's an open question of whether we can land on one standard or whether we're just going to live in a world where, much like JPEG and PNG and other formats handle imagery, we'll just be able to convert between the two. We're very early, as much as many of us have been working on this for years. The hope would be that we land on one format as soon as possible, but we just may not. So,
but by the way, Apple has .reality files also, which is a a kind of a group of USDZ, it's really cool experience. So you can move the different assets separately in the environment. So also something that we hope that can be supported in the future at larger scale.
Cheers.
Right. Thanks. Next question.
Great session. I actually have a question for you. I think Amram brought this up, and Yahel brought this up too. I totally agree. I mean, a lot of us are big proponents that 3D assets are going to be table stakes for most brands. I'm very interested about how you see these applying to experiential marketing too. Amram, like you brought up, people want to see some of the 3D assets showcased in an environment that's interactive, and we talked a little bit about virtual try-ons, et cetera. But are there any other types of marketing deployment initiatives where you can see these kind of extending their life cycle?
You want to take
NTF.
Yeah.
NFTs.
Yes, for sure.
NTF. NFTs.
I knew what you meant.
Well, of course, the ad format's a very interesting development, right? And I think Snap has announced pretty big partnership with WPP. So what we are seeing from our customers, definitely a lot of thinking is moving to the ad side. And on the ad, if you think about the budgets, right? If you think about 3D assets created for e-commerce purposes, that's one proposition. It's more like a cost center, right? But if you think about 3D assets for ads, then it's like a profit center immediately. So it's, I think Snap, Facebook, Google, they all are doing very interesting things around these things.
So I can give you a perspective of what retailers want to use 3D in environments today. So they want to be able to customize environments. So let's say if it's a red couch in a blue room, does it evoke more emotion? And be quickly able to A/B test right now. So interesting is the world is still 2D, even though we're 3Ding it to make it faster and cheaper and quicker. But a lot of A/B testing is where they want to use different environments to test and also customize product. But product customization at a retail level, which does mainly the advertising, and A/B testing is because they've already put an order in, so it's not there, but manufacturers do it. But they really want to test in environments and see what it's all about emotion and all about different customer segments and presenting different, room scenes or outside. We have one customer who's creating Paris apartments and Spanish villas to, basically put the same product but different upholstery in those rooms and trying to make it look like they appeal to different customers. Yeah.
I love that.
I think Max, if you can switch to the next slide, and this one is also a good example. So you said about how long they can live. So this is synthetic data. If you can click it once again, so you can actually what you can do with 3D asset. It's pretty much limited to your imagination, right? So you can synthesize once you have that 3D asset and it's compatible to all of those experiences. You can do whatever you want with it. So you can actually change, right? This is like a 3D bracelet on top of a 2D model. And you can synthesize any model that you want, right? You can put that bracelet on top of any 2D image that you want. So you can personalize that experience. Online, programmatic marketing, so all of those things are going to happen soon. It's just a matter of cracking, us cracking the content creation problem at scale, and then moving from there to more advanced use cases like these ones.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Amazing talk, by the way. So, awesome. My question is more on the life cycle of a 3D model, right? One of the things that you guys mentioned was trying to avoid redoing a lot of work. So getting it right the first time, establishing your process, establishing kind of where your target platform is going to be, how the model is going to look, et cetera, right? So I know there are certain performant ranges for GOB. It's a certain polygon, count limit that you have to be within. Same thing with materials, how many materials you should use, how many maps you should use per material, et cetera. So kind of where I'm struggling to understand what you should do here is, say you make a model today with using those same ranges, and 2 years from now, technology improves. Somebody puts out a newer model that looks a lot better, that's going above the typical standard, right? So now you're in a position where maybe as a company you want to redo them anyway because it just doesn't look better. than so on and so forth company that's producing a newer model with newer specs right now. How do you solve for that? Do you think it's perfectly reasonable to maybe go above the performant ranges right now to kind of future-proof the life cycle of a 3D model right now? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Maybe to pick that up, yeah, I think that's the point we were discussing earlier. It's related, right, to having a high-resolution base asset. And I think what we agreed on was that it perfectly makes sense to model something that is higher than what you can maybe display on in an AR app, right? Because maybe in a year from now, your AR app can display like twice the number of polygons at the same frame rate.
And also with streaming and XR, you know, you saw could be possible.
And a good tip will be save the source files, like the software files, so you can always go back to the same version, then export it if there's like future use cases. So not only the GLTF, but also let's say the Max files or the Maya files.
What we have done inside Khronos Group, to just present a Khronos perspective also, is there are the 3D asset creation guidelines out there that you can find on GitHub, and they have one section that's called Publishing Targets. And it's called Publishing Targets V1.0, so it's like version 1 that lists like different recommendations for like a 3D ad and a like 3D like AR app on a mobile device and so on, like recommended number of polys, texture resolution and so on, file size. And it's called 1.0 so that in a year from now we could update it, right, and say here's 1.1 or 2.0 or whatever. And that means like the more you can automate the process, the better, right? You just exchange your preset or recipe and then press run again and you get your publishing variants.
Yeah, and it would still be time as well to try to convert later. We switched most of the shaders from classic Fong shaders to PBR not that long ago, and
Strong naming conventions.
Convert,
strong naming conventions, like planned ahead, stuff that you can programmatically change later on. Like get an expert, think this through, because again, like stopping thinking about your pipeline and how it will look like in the next few years, it's gonna save you a lot of trouble.
Just to follow up on that, so the game industry uses LODs. That's kind of what I'm leaning into right now. We understand using the source model, the high poly model. Now, do you see a benefit of making two different versions of that? There's a highest one, there's one that's slightly lower. For right now, you use the one that's slightly lower, and then later on, maybe bump it up to the high poly model. Regardless, seems like you have to repackage that file no matter what, you know, if you want to stay with the times and make sure it looks at the highest fidelity no matter what, right? Does that sound reasonable? Right.
I think so. I mean, I think you want multiple levels of detail, ideally automated, you know, and ideally we get to the point where it's like a Netflix experience. It's a streaming level of detail based on, you know, partly the device, but also the context, right? A lot of what we're talking about right here, especially in the AR experiences today, you're looking at one or two products, but in the future, there may be VR brick and mortar retail where you have hundreds of products in a 3D model context. Your polygon budget is very different there. Your texture material budget is very different. And so your content needs to adapt. And we already see some folks doing it. It's like Sketchfab, probably one of the most popular, if not the most popular viewer out there. It does streaming levels of detail. And so it's possible. And you know, the ecosystem is going to build the tools to automate a lot of that. You know, in games, it's still a lot of work to do. And everywhere, it's still a lot of work to do. But I think as part of what excites us about 3D commerce is we're growing the 3D market, right? We have a much larger customer base that's now engaged with 3D and AR, and that means the tooling is going to start to catch up and the standards are going to catch up faster than they did in the past.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you. Another question? I think we have time for one more question, maybe.
Great panel, and I love learning about Khronos. I'd encourage all of us to look that up. Nice plug there too. It sounds like it's a great opportunity for us to learn from each other, you know, all boats rise kind of mentality. So thank you so much for our panel and our moderators. We'll take a short break, but again, thank you so much.